If I were to say, like, there's one thing you can just keep in the forefront of your mind, connection is health. So connection with the soil creates a connection of health. So does connection with the sun. So does connection with our head, heart, and body. So does connection with the water that we interact with. So is connection with one another. So is like this connection.
Welcome to Harmonic Alignment, a podcast that explores the new frontier of energy medicine, bridging the gap between Western medicine and quantum physics, giving you easy and practical solutions. Guided by me, Dr. Larissa Sharipova, and me, Priscilla Koblenz. Join us on a journey discovering your harmonic alignment.
On today's episode 65 of Harmonic Alignment, I get to connect with the beautiful Kristyn Emmer. Kristyn is a journey of intrinsic health coach. She is an Enneagram expert and has this incredible health journey story, which led her back to soil health. She was really been a pioneer in the microbiome and gut health and understanding how that affected her overall health. She grew up on a farm and she tells that incredible journey of coming back to the soil and how that's improved her health and her connection with her neighbors and her community. You're going to love this story. You're going to love Kristyn's wisdom. Be sure to check out her on Instagram and follow her website at emmerandearth.com. I am so excited today on Harmonic Alignment. I am with the beautiful healer, Kristyn Emmer. Kristyn has been doing coaching. She's doing the Enneagram, and I'm just so excited to be with you today. Hi.
Thanks, Priscilla. It's great to be here with you.
Well, you are a fellow Journey of Intrinsic Health coach. Tell me, how did that come about? How was that journey of wellness, and particularly the journey of intrinsic health? How did that unfold for you?
So to get to that question, I'm going to have to back up to my early days. So I grew up in rural Wisconsin and kind of hated it, actually. Like, really just could not wait for most of my childhood. And I had a great childhood, so don't get me wrong there, but really just wanted to get out. I wanted to see the rest of the world. I always had the sense that like there was something else out there that I wasn't experiencing that I want to just like get my hands on. Those years, they were very formative because I grew up in a farming community. And so my grandparents ran a dairy farm here in Wisconsin, and I was always around farming. Now, the problem with it is what I later learned, and I put a name to it, is it's conventional farming. And so to me, it felt like another job. It was another like thing that you did where it had the requirements and the things that you had to do. And it was, quite uninspiring to me at the moment. But at the same time, also grew in this appreciation for food and was really drawn to like farm to table type movements. Farmers markets are like my favorite environment to be in and always really have been. I'm so intrigued by like the beautiful colors and smells and tastes of food. You know, my moment turned 18, I was like, I'm getting out of here. So I ran really far away to the other side of the state to an area called the Driftless region, which is really known for its food and its organic farming and its connection to the land, and sort of, I guess you could say, had my epiphany moment of, oh, there are other ways to ensure that food gets to the table. And it's not just this like conventional type of way where we're putting in lots of inputs and outputs, and it's all of the things that come with that. Fast forward a little bit further on, I went through my own big health journey that included an eating disorder and included a huge bout of burnout and adrenal fatigue, and got to really come face to face with both myself, but also the realities of our medical system. So of course, what naturally comes about when you are maybe unaware is I went to my medical community and I said, what's going on with me? And I got one of two answers, which was, you're just going to kind of have to deal with this for the rest of your life and manage it, or here is a medication that you'll need to be on for the rest of your life. And as someone who doesn't even like to take vitamins, like I just don't like to take anything, I was like, well, that's not going to fly with me. So my persistence got me into a whole new world. And I feel like this happens a lot with folks where you come to this sort of holistic perspective because there's the system that failed you and didn't provide answers. And that's what happened for me. So this was like 2010 10-ish times. So microbiome talks were like not really in the popular.
No, that's kind of the pioneering years where people started talking about the gut-brain connection and
Totally, totally. And interestingly, it was my mom that actually reached out to me and she said, I think you need to look at your gut. And I was like, I don't know. So I went to all kinds of different folks for support and help, and did all of the, food allergy testing and all of the whatever. And in a final last ditch effort, after years of trying to figure out what was going on with me, a friend told me, I think you should see my friend. Her name is Summer. She's a functional nutritionist, and I think she'll really help you. And so I walked into Summer's office. We had a 2.5-hour conversation and an assessment. And
hold on, I just have to stop there. Like, what a gift to be able to talk to a health professional for 2.5 hours. They're actually getting your story. Like, they're finding out about you. Ooh,
totally.
Love that.
And you know what? That's the thing that I think is so beautiful about this holistic approach. Naturally in the work that I do and in just the things I'm interested in, I have family or friends or whoever that's like, what's going on with me? And it's like, wow, let's start by like talking about how you were born. What was your mom like when you were born? What was she doing? What environments were you in early childhood?
Were you a C-section baby? Because that kind of matters.
So
right.
I wasn't, yeah, totally. Like I wasn't a C-section baby, but I was formula fed. And so like that comes with all of its different things that I was never breastfed. And so like all those little pieces to the puzzle, we think, oh, it doesn't matter, but it does matter when you're looking at these types of issues going, okay, well, if I wasn't breastfed, I've been probably living with gut dysbiosis for my whole life and just really didn't know it until the environment around me put so much pressure on it that it just had to express in the way that it expressed, which was in adrenal fatigue. It couldn't support the environment that I was in. So backing up, we had this conversation with Summer. Now, the interesting point here was I had been a vegetarian for 8 years up until that point. And so Summer said to me, you'll be feeling better in 6 months, but you have to eat meat again. And I looked at her and I said, I will do whatever you tell me to do for 6 months, but I do not believe you.
Wow.
And so I did everything that she said by the book, like just sort of looked at her as my go-to person, like just the person that I needed to lean on for that season so that I could get back on my own 2 feet. And she's totally right. Within 6 months, I was feeling not 100%, but 80, 85%, like really starting to feel like myself again. So there's this pendulum of healing.
Right.
And it was so profound and happened actually quite quickly. I think that was the thing that was so sort of profound to me was, wow, I changed the way that I ate. I slowed down. I said no to things.
Saying no to things, healthy boundaries.
Totally. I changed the way I moved. I mean, I was like running, like so much just running. And it was like actually walking, stretching is what I need to be doing right now. Like more healing movement, not this like really intense movement. But that's what I really need to be doing. And so within 6 months, it was like, I went from such a dark place health-wise to feeling like I am about to feel like the best I've ever felt in my life. So I get to that point, and then of course, life throws me another like little gift, which is I met my now husband. He had big dreams to go move overseas to do a degree. And so we got married. We moved overseas to Scotland 6 days after we got married. So that was a little wild situation.
That had to be so exciting and fun and a little scary, I'm sure.
It was. We had all these thoughts of like, maybe he'll go first. And I was like, you know what? You are not going on that adventure without me. Like, I'm coming along. I'm going. So it was interesting because we moved to Scotland and, we didn't know anybody. I'd never been to anywhere in the European continent before. I traveled a lot, just never got to Europe. And I was like, this feels like a new life, like a new beginning. And what was really fascinating to me is I have run so far from this farming community, like trying to get as far away from it as possible. And then we land in Scotland in a farming community. And I remember like the first day, one of the first mornings that we were there, I opened the curtains which face the street and rolls by a John Deere tractor with a huge trailer of potatoes. And I'm like, okay, like we're back.
Yeah. Once a farm girl, always a farm girl.
Totally. I was like, oh, that did something a little strange in my spirit, my heart right there. And so we were in Scotland for 4 years. And the thing that I would summarize in that time was it was really a connection back to myself and the land. So we had lots of open space. I had nobody telling me what they think I should be doing with my life or anything. It was just like, it's me and my connection to this space. So I did a health coaching certification, mostly to like, one, fill some time. And then two, it was, hey, I just went through this whole transformation myself. I'd love to know like what happened in my body and how would I maybe support other people in doing the same thing. It was a functional medicine health coaching certification. And so basically you're asking, what's the root cause of illness? What's the root cause of the way that you feel the whole time? And at the end, we got this question of like, okay, so who are you talking to? Who's your niche? What's the problem you're trying to solve in the world? I was like, I don't know. There's so many problems. There's so many areas that you can go into. And I'm an Enneagram type 7. So I love the possibility of things. And so restricting the possibilities feels like the thing I don't want to do. So anyway, I started asking myself, I said, well, I just spent a year asking what's the root cause of disease. I wonder if I could just ask myself, what's the root cause of health? How do we actually become healthy? And so I went on this whole little mental map where I was asking myself, okay, so a healthy person has healthy tissues and muscles and a healthy body. Healthy bodies come from healthy cells. Healthy cells come from healthy mitochondria. Mitochondria, they get their boost from food and water. And our food and our water comes from our plants and animals. And our plants and animals generally come from the soil. And the soil is the soil. So I guess we're going to just stop at soil. So I was like, okay, I'm going to just ask the question that from here forward to wherever this takes me, I'm going to ask the question, where does soil health and human health collide?
Ooh, let's just repeat that one because I think that is such a powerful question. Where does soil health and human health collide?
Where's the overlap?
Yeah.
How do they influence each other? Where is the overlap? Because if that is truly the root cause of health, then I want to ask all the questions. How do we get there? Like, what does that look like? How is that expressed? So as you do, you try to find some sort of credential for this, some sort of backing that like the question is valid. And so I went on a search to try to find any sort of medical doctor, researcher, scientist who was talking about the connection between soil health and human health. And I went on this big grand adventure to try to find this person. And the one person in 2018 that was talking about this, just in the very slightest bit, was Dr. Zach Bush. And so at the time, I think he had like 400 some odd followers on Instagram. And I was like, sweet, like, I don't care. Who's this guy? So he was starting Farmer's Footprint and doing all these other things and really was sort of the first medical professional that I heard talking about how we need to be looking at the soil and how the soil is so impactful for human health. Now, that journey took me into all kinds of different spaces. It took me into nutrient density. It took me into pesticides and herbicides and all the chemicals we're putting in our food. It took me to local food movements. I mean, the list of what that took me into was massive. And I am such a soil nerd at this point in time. I am happy to talk about soil with anybody who cares to talk about the topic. And it's interesting because what I found from there and where I'm sort of at today is that there is no one root of health. And one of the things that I held as my North Star throughout this whole thing was something that Wendell Berry said. And he has an essay about this, and it's called Connection is Health. And that has been sort of my tagline of my business. It's been the thing I come back to. If I were to say, like, there's one thing you can just keep in the forefront of your mind, connection is health. So connection with the soil creates a connection of health. So does connection with the sun. So does connection with our head, heart, and body. So does connection with the water that we interact with. So is connection with one another. So is like this connection. And really the soil was that first sort of connection point and maybe one of the more foundational connection points that got me into this. The undercurrent of all of this was when I was in college. So this was sort of around the same time that I was like running away from my small town. I got introduced to the Enneagram. And so this was back in 2009-ish. I was like, wow, what a fascinating tool. And at the time, it was more like, oh, it's a personality test, tells me about myself. I had no clue the depth that this went into. And it's sort of been with me throughout this whole journey as an undercurrent, not anything that I've like really brought to the forefront until recently, because what I have learned throughout this whole journey and everybody that I've interacted with and all of the folks I've coached and all of the questions that I've heard asked is the Enneagram is based on our fears and motivations. And our fears and motivations that we move through the world with impact our connection to health. Our connection is health. And so I find that using the tool of the Enneagram provides us language, and language is so powerful because it helps us create our reality or name our reality to help us understand where maybe are we missing connection? Where do we long for connection? And how do we enter back into connection? And I think that's the journey of the Enneagram. We talk about our health journeys. They don't have clear language to it. The Enneagram has clear language to what a journey looks like, but that is flexible enough to meet everybody where they are.
You bring up a really good point. The idea that your health journey is this series of symptoms isn't the answer. You're saying that you have to get to what motivates you, what's your I am, why are you here, what's your fears. Like those are more of the understanding that's going to help people on their health journey. It isn't just the supplement they take or always eating clean food. It's so much more than that.
Totally. So here's a really interesting anecdote, we'll say, from the journey. And this is what I learned from Journey and from Dr. Zach Bush and lots of other folks. Like this is tentacled into lots of different places. Is about water and how important our water structure is. But even more than that, and more of like technical parts of this, is the idea that everything is either tilting us towards hydration or dehydration. And that this is sort of in some ways a barometer towards our health. And so not to say that we need to have everything perfectly. Everything always needs to be hydrating at all times. Like that's so unrealistic to go through our world and think that. But like the things that are hydrating are getting out in the sun, putting your feet on the ground, caring for a loved one, or having this beautiful conversation. It's nourishing ourselves with beautiful food. It's planting a garden. It's giving your time or talent or treasures away to someone else. Those things are all hydrating. Dehydrating things are, negative emotions or emotions that keep us stuck, like shame. It could be, alcohol. It can be negative relationships. It can be artificial lighting. The dehydrating things can be all of that. And the idea is that as long as we're tipping ourselves towards hydration, then we're moving ourselves in the direction of health. And I find that to be quite freeing, but also encompasses so many things. Like it's not actually just about the water you drink. It's about how are we living our life towards connection. Connection is hydrating.
Yeah.
So you could say connection is health, connection is hydration.
So you started then in the Enneagram, and that really helped you understand your own purpose and what was showing up for you. It also probably helped you connect better with your husband, because I've heard that's one of the great things is how if you understand your partner's numbers, that can really help you understand where he's operating from. And now you know how to respond. Can you share a little more about like the system in general and how people can get started in checking out the Enneagram?
So yes, the Enneagram, how I kind of came back to it after my like college and grad school and sort of early 20s type of years was actually with dating my husband and getting married. So here's an interesting story. So I lead with a type 7, my husband leads with a type 9. If you were to look at us move through the world, you'd be like, wow, they're like the same number. They make similar choices. They think similar ways about things. Like they seem so similar. They make a lot of similar decisions in the world. However, the Enneagram isn't based on your actions. We could all take a very similar action or respond to something in a very similar way, but it's based on motivations and fears. So my husband and I take an action towards something. I'm making the decision based on not feeling stuck, on keeping my possibilities open, on making sure that like this isn't going to cause more pain to myself. That's really like the motivation that I have. My husband, leading with a type 9, he might be making a very similar decision, but to keep the peace. So he's thinking like, is this going to cause an issue between people? Is this going to cause an issue within my own peace? Is this going to cause some sort of rift that he's going to have to keep the peace about? And so is making decisions accordingly, again, within his like less aware self. So the really beautiful thing about the Enneagram that I love is folks have their different ideas of like, oh, these personality tests, they put people in a box. I don't like them because they don't really describe the human experience. So the idea is that the Enneagram is kind of in a circle, and we actually embody every type of the Enneagram within ourselves. It's just that we've either decided to abandon some of those, or what we really say in the Enneagram is we've identified so heavily with one type that we've lost the ability to like tap into easily these other types.
And how many types are there?
9 types.
9 types.
9 types, but each one of those types has 3 subtypes. So technically you could say there are 27 types. And you know, that gets really complex. So I'll just keep it with the 9 types here for now. So the idea of the Enneagram is actually that you identify with your type less. So the less that I identify with the type 7 and start to tap into a type 5 or a type 1 or the beauties of the type 8 or the different areas that are kind of around me, that's a journey towards health. That's a journey towards connection. I'm reconnecting with, let's say, the center of that circle that allows me to be closer to those other types, to tap into the strengths and the wisdom of all of those other types. So I love that because it's actually saying that we're all on a journey. We're all a work in progress. It's fluid. And the whole point of the whole thing is connection. And it's interesting because every time I read about an Enneagram book, or I'm working with someone with the Enneagram, or I take a training with the Enneagram, the thing I always lead with, always, is like resounding compassion in my soul of we are really just walking each other home. We are really all just doing our very best to make our way through a world that is sometimes confusing and wild, and there's just so many questions, but it's also simultaneously so beautiful. It's full of opportunities, full of amazing surprises, and all of those things we filter through the lens of our Enneagram type.
So I think I know that 2s are helpers and 3s are performers. Can you do the 1 through 9 real quick of like what the main characteristic is?
Totally. So the Enneagram is organized by 3 different centers of intelligence is what we call them. So our head types, our heart types, and our gut types. And really what that talks about is, where do you live most of the time? As a type 7, I'm a head type. I live in my head. I'm a planner. I think about things. I most often forget that I have a body, and I really just discredit that I have a heart. I discredit emotion a lot. And that sometimes gets me into trouble. I miss a lot because I don't easily tap into that heart space unless I'm very conscious of it. So our gut types are 8s, 9s, and 1s. So our 8s are usually called the challenger. You'll feel an 8 before you know an 8. When 8s walk in the room, their energy is so palpable. So the thing about 8s, 9s, and 1s is they're all very, very concerned with justice, and they all deal with anger. They just do it in different ways. So 8s, they feel like the protector. They feel like if there's an injustice happening, they're the one that's going to fix it. They're the ones that are going to protect the folks. They do not want to be vulnerable. So if 8s feel like they're in a vulnerable position, they get very uncomfortable and can sometimes express their anger outwardly. Okay. 9s are peacemakers. So 9s are really concerned with justice in that everybody's voice is being heard, that the peace is kept, but primarily they're really actually concerned with the peace within themselves. So are they at peace within their own body? We generally say that 9s fall asleep to their anger. Interestingly enough, I know that my husband is angry before he knows he's angry. And not because he's not self-aware as a human being. It's just that in this space, in the anger space, like he is falling asleep to his anger because that would disturb peace. So our type 1s then are usually called the perfectionists. So they're really concerned with right or wrong, doing things in the best way possible, following the rules, and to ensure that like we can like maintain a just society. Generally, we'll say that 1s try to shove their anger. They try to hide it. And so it leaks out here and there. Our heart types are 2s, 3s, and 4s. And so our type 2s are the helper, as you said before. A type 2 will feel like they are on top of the world if they can meet everybody's needs, anticipate them before they even happen. And really what they're trying to secure is love and belonging in that. That's kind of our type 2. Our type 3 is our achievers. Achievers act like chameleons. Type 3s want to be the most successful appearing person in every room. And so they will turn into a chameleon. So if being really loud and boisterous in this room would make you be the most successful, they'll do it. If being the most shrewd in this room would be the most successful, they'll do it. If being a data expert in this room is going to be the most successful, they'll make it happen. It all comes back to love and belonging for type 3s. Type 4s are really our like unique types. And so generally you'll find type 4s to be very artistic and always feeling unsettled is kind of how I would sometimes describe a 4. Again, this really does change based on where they are in their journey. And I'm kind of describing more of like a middle of the road health 4. So 4s always feel like something is missing. And they're always looking externally to find the thing that is missing. And so they'll look at someone's life and go, oh, maybe if I just had that thing. And then there's also this strand of uniqueness. And so they're trying to find the thing that is missing through the uniquenesses of their own life. And again, all tied back to love and belonging. So those are our heart types. And then our head types are types 5, 6, and 7s. So 5s are called the investigators. And 5s really want to know the information. They are like human encyclopedias. If they get on a topic, they want to know everything about the topic that is at hand. They're going to be the experts in the room. So a lot of like academic types are type 5s because they can sit and focus on the most minuscule thing and know everything that there is about that most minuscule thing. 5s are also can sometimes come across as a bit more reclusive. They're trying to secure resources for themselves and oftentimes feel that like giving that away will leave less for themselves. 6s, sometimes called the loyalists. So 6s are the best of friends. 6s are also going to be your folks that are the contingency planners. So they're going to have a plan A, they're going to have a plan B, and probably C, D, E, F, and G. And they're going to be thinking about all of the possibilities about what could go wrong and how are we going to plan for what could go wrong, which is great in some ways, can be really helpful for a lot of reasons. But also when they decide that they care about someone, they are fiercely loyal to that person and ensuring that they have everything they need so that they don't run into these types of issues. And then type 7s. So type 7s are generally called the enthusiast. And so type 7s are going to be moving through the world looking for all kinds of possibilities. They're looking for fun and excitement. And all of that is to keep themselves up so that they don't have to deal with the pain that also comes with being a human in this world. And so they're really pain avoidant and trying to, usurp that by possibilities and by fun things and by always having a good story and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of the constellation of the Enneagram. And so really, again, kind of going back to that circle of the 9 types and that we all actually embody all of the 9 types. The other piece of wisdom that comes from that is we have our head types, we have our heart types, and we have our gut types. And while we live in one place, the journey opportunity with the Enneagram is how do we connect all of those? How do we get in a place where our head is not out of balance, our heart is not out of balance, and our gut is not out of balance, that they're all aligned and working in tandem with one another? Because we see what happens in the world when we rely too heavily on our brains, right? When it's like, the science is the science, but we don't actually pull in our other ways of knowing, which is our intuition. There's a doctor I follow, Dr. Bradley Campbell, who says, logic is fast, science is slow. So yes, like science is amazing and it's beautiful. And I'm so glad that we have all of this amazing technology, and we can't decouple that from logic.
Right.
We can't decouple that from wisdom because we are intuitive beings. We have knowing in so many different ways. But as a culture, we're very head-centered. We're very lopsided to our head. So much so that so many people do not know what their intuition sounds like.
I mean, that's kind of what I think we're here for, is to check in with our higher self and find that inner knowing. When someone comes to work with you, walk me through your process of coaching. Walk me through how you use the Enneagram and what does that look like for someone to get started working with you?
Generally where we start in the Enneagram is a typing interview. They're quite long. It's like 90 minutes, 2 hours long. And really it's just an exploration of you. It's an exploration of your journey, where you're coming from, what makes you tick, what are the things that light you up. So one thing to caution about with the Enneagram is we always think, oh, well, we can just take a test and then we can know our Enneagram type. And well, tests can actually get us closer to maybe narrowing down a type. I'm trained in a tradition called the narrative tradition. And so really what that brings up, or what that offers, is that the Enneagram is the language that we can use to describe our stories. It doesn't sit on top of our stories. It supports them. So our stories are the main focal point. And if the Enneagram can come in and support with like language or with a journey or with something, but it doesn't mean that every single type 7 is going to have the same story, or every single type 2 is going to have the same story. There might be things in the Enneagram that you're like, doesn't really resonate with me. And that's okay. And that's why we do these typing interviews. If you're coming to a typing interview as a type 3, you might resonate with 90% of what all the resources say, but there's that 10% that makes you uniquely you. And we want to capture that in our journey and in the process of becoming. And so that's really what the typing interview is for. The other thing you cannot do in the Enneagram, which I know a lot of people try to, is you cannot type other people. So I'm not actually typing somebody. It's really whoever I'm working with, my client, it's their responsibility to go on the journey, to decide what type that they resonate with most and what type they lead with. And I'm really there holding up the mirror and asking the questions and diving in and making sure we're going where we need to go to get sort of the right information to come forth. So that would be sort of the first piece. And then from there, it's really, we can take it wherever we want to go. So I do really tailor those sessions to wherever it is. So some people come because they want to work through health, or they want to work through parenting topics, or they want to work through career. And so whatever lens we're sort of going through or going with, we just tailor our conversations based on that. But it's all through the Enneagram. And again, the Enneagram not as like a box, but the Enneagram as a foundation, as common and helpful language. Because here's the thing. What I found in my own story and what I hear from so many people is come to the table with like, I have these big questions in life, but I don't even know where to start because I don't even have the language to name what it is that I'm experiencing. And I think that's the gift of what the Enneagram can offer, is that place to launch from, to say, oh, that is actually some helpful language that I can start moving forward with.
Oh, I love that. Okay. So when someone wants to sign up to work with you on health coaching, you use the Enneagram as part of that tool for them to help better understand themselves. And so that first session could be a 90-minute, and it's really diving deep to all the different facets of what's playing into what's coming up for them right now.
Yep.
I
exactly.
love that. Okay. And then do you work on like a package basis? Do you work for people, or have like, hey, let's do this for 6 months, or let's do this for 3 months? What would be your ideal client, and what are they looking to change?
Yeah, great question. So I don't necessarily have packages. I've tried that before. And what I found is not everybody needs the same thing. And so I really want to be as attuned to what individuals need as possible. And so that's something that I mutually decide with the folks that I'm working with. But I think what I would describe as like someone who would be the best suited for this is somebody who is curious and ready to learn, and not just like learn about the system, but learn about themselves and want to learn so that they can transform whatever it is, the thing that they're looking to transform. The folks that I think find this the most supportive are the ones that aren't tied to an outcome, a specific outcome, we'll say. And the reason I say that is because what I have witnessed in my own health journey and the health journeys of others that I've had the privilege of witnessing is we can have goals and we can have direction, but what that actual outcome looks like can look pretty different depending on where we go in this whole journey. And I think that's the beautiful part about going on a journey, is that we don't always know the outcome. We don't always know exactly how this is going to look. And that's part of
I'm so glad you said that, because I think that there's a surrender that has to happen. If I think that I need to end up in this exact spot, and I think this is my truth, the universe always has this way to come in and go, you just thought that was your truth, and it'll blow it all up. And so there comes this whole thing of like, have a goal, have an idea of where you want to move, but then be open to how it unfolds, because it may take you in a completely different direction than you originally assumed you were going.
Mm-hmm.
That's the magic, right? That's the the winding path of our beautiful, messy, perfect, imperfect lives.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
I love that. So, Kristyn, what do you think is some of the wisdom that you're seeing that people really have this disconnect with?
Think it's a number of things that we've talked about. One thing that I think really shocks people is how all of the little pieces of their life's journey are sort of accumulating to bring them to who they are today. And I don't think that as a society or as a culture or like just in general, we maybe don't even have just the space to really get curious about like what is our story? And so one of my favorite things I love to do with people is a timeline sort of tool where we write like what are the things that sort of happened to you in your life and what was true about the way that you felt about that in the world. And that gives us so much beautiful information, similar to like what we were talking about earlier with how you were born and what your mother was doing when she was pregnant with you is like those are all pieces of information that are really important to where we go in the future. They're not jails, they're not like life sentences, but they can give us information as to like an explanation of okay, now here's where we go next. I also think there is just a big disconnect with what it actually means to live as a human because we get all of these inputs from our culture and our world that is like directly oppositional to what actually like it means to be a human fully alive and how we connect in. So again, going back to that connection is health. I could just go on with so many examples of like, I don't know why AirPods are the first thing that's coming into my mind, but I'm like, hey, like electromagnetic frequencies are a real thing and we do need to be aware of them. And that doesn't mean like get rid of every single piece of electronic in your house, but it does mean like be aware of that load. And actually maybe AirPods are adding to that load in a way that you don't really need. And you know, Dr. Zach talks about this a lot. Like we go from our air conditioned boxes and then we go outside to our air conditioned vehicles and then we go into air conditioned offices or stores and like we're just in these very sterile environments. And so one thing is like just getting out into different environments, into different spaces if we want to transform. And I think that's one thing that I've really taken on my own journey is like, we have to move and not just move as an exercise, but we need to like move in different spaces. We need to explore. We need to like go out and be in our world and interact with it. I think our journey becomes pretty obvious when we do that. It makes me think of the phrase, it's really hard to move a parked car. Mm. So the idea being like, if the car is moving, if we're nimble, let's say, then actually like the journey does become obvious. And I think that's another thing too, is like, we all know way more about what we need to be doing to live a life fully alive than what we give ourselves credit for. Yeah. We just need to slow down enough. We maybe need a support, like a mirror, a reflection from another human being. We might need the community around us. We definitely need the community around us. Like, we need all of these things. And we know way, way, way more than we think we do about what we need to be doing. So I think that's what I'll leave us with.
Oh, I love that. I know that you kind of specialize in college age, but are you helping young moms? Because you have 2 young children yourself. So you know what that journey is like.
Yeah, totally. So that's a great question. A lot of my experience has been on college campuses. So I'm doing a lot of career coaching and well-being coaching and things like that on college campuses with college students. I would say right now, the folks that I'm working with probably most often are young moms, generally moms that are in sort of career mode, but maybe looking to shift, just kind of in transition. That's maybe the biggest thing that I would say is like people in transition are generally the folks that come to me.
Oh, I love that. You know, one of the things that I think we both resonate on is that despite the chaos, despite the insanity of every system from our healthcare system to education to all the things, that there's never been a more beautiful time to be here as a human. If you could plant some seeds for what a new earth or what our new existence would look like, can you give me a little bit of your vision of what you would like to see unfold?
Ooh, this is such a fun question. So not to sound like a broken record, but I'm going to go back to this connection is health idea. I think about like how many of us don't know our neighbors. And how many of us have no clue where our food is coming from? Who's growing our food? Or like, what are your local watersheds? And just different pieces of information like that. And so I guess in sort of this like new world idea, or like where we could evolve, it would be that communities support one another, that we're like really getting into this like local and hyper local. I live on a kind of a country road where there are a few houses, but we don't have like sidewalks. It's not walkable necessarily. And I haven't gotten there yet, but it is a big goal of mine, probably when it gets nicer out again, to like know all of them, know who they are, like, and not necessarily just like when we need resources, but like, how can we support one another through a time that we're living through, which is massive transition and transformation and change. And we're going to need to rely on one another. And so that's like so many beautiful people as a result of the internet who live all over the world. And I'm so thankful for that community, but it doesn't replace the folks that are literally living, breathing, eating, sleeping right next door to my house. I think about that. I think about our connection to our food. Like, it's just insanity to me that like we spray all of our food so that bugs don't eat it, but then we just go eat it. Like, that's wild to me.
I mean, you really think about it, it makes no logical sense. If an insect wouldn't eat it, why would a human eat it?
Yes, exactly. So I just think about people who feel empowered to grow their own food, and not necessarily from like a homesteader, like full send type of experience, but even just some connection to growing something that you consume, but then also supporting the local food systems that are in the area. So who are the local farmers? What are they doing? And how are we taking care of them? You know, one story that comes to my mind is this summer at the farmer's market. I was asking our favorite farmer, the one that we buy all of our food from, I was just asking her how she was doing. And she's like, oh, it's just been like a long day. She's like, really just need a coffee. And I was like, I can get you a coffee. So walk down to the coffee shop down the street, get our coffee. And it's like, that is just such a simple way that, like, you know, she tried to pay me back for it. I said, no, because you are growing our food. Like, you are what's keeping our family healthy and connected. And you are keeping us directly connected to the land that is right in our neighborhood, right around us. I am so
I think
grateful.
you're going to make me cry. I think that's so beautiful that when people recognize. So as a daughter of a dairy farmer and rancher, and my family works 7 days a week. I mean, for 53 years, they're milking cows twice a day. Like, you don't realize, and it doesn't matter if it's 0 or below 0 or if it's 100 degrees out. They are in the elements, working, taking care of animals and producing food. It's such a gift to have people who are willing to do that for others. So thank you for that message. I love that.
Yeah. And in the world of AI and tech and all that kind of stuff, like, I just see all these businesses circling around AI in such an aggressive way. Well, what if we actually circled around farmers and land stewards as like the pillars of our communities who are literally keeping us fed alive? Like, that's what we should be rallying around in an even bigger way than how all these companies are rallying around AI. I just think the draw to local, to real physical people that you could go hug, that you can like bump shoulders with, that you are truly doing life with, whether you even realize it or not, whether you recognize the people you walk by probably every day or drive by every single day and you don't even realize that you drive by them. Like, those are the people that I think are people of the future. So
oh, I love that. Yeah, that's the world I want to live in. I want to live in a world where I know my neighbors, I know where my food comes from, I know my connection to the planet, and it does matter how it all connects. Well, my friend, what a gift. Please tell us your website.
So the business name that I work in is Emmer and Earth. And so Emmer is my last name, but it is also a type of wheat, and a very sturdy type of wheat that is resilient in all kinds of different environments and can withstand lots of change. And then the connection to earth. So the idea that we're coming back to our soil, that we're connecting in, and connection is health. And so connecting this very sturdy wheat that feeds us and sustains us with the life giver, which is our earth and our soil. And you can find me at emmerandearth.com, and that has all the information about the Enneagram, my offerings, and all that kind of stuff. So that would be the best place, and how to get in touch with me as well.
Beautiful. Is there any other wisdom you want to share before we part today?
and this is one of the things that we come across in the journey, but the more I sit with it, that I just think more people need to hear this and feel it and know it, is that you are a miracle. Every person that is on this planet is such a miracle, and we need every person that's here to be showing up and contributing and bringing what their unique genius is to the world in so many different ways. It's really easy to do as a mom with kids, and you're like, oh my gosh, like the fact that you exist is so wild to me. And that has just been crazy to be like, this little human is like such a miracle. They learn things so quickly. They're such a miracle. And we all did that and do that. It's like, we are all such miracles. And I think if we lived with that, like if we woke up every morning and we all thought, I am such a miracle, we would all build a very different world.
Amen to that. Yes.
That is what I would leave everybody with, is you are a miracle. Go live today like you are a miracle. Go interact with other people today as if they are miracles, and see what happens in the world around you.
Okay. The wisdom of Kristyn Emmer. Thank you so much, my friend. I'm so grateful you shared your story and your beauty and your healing modality on Harmonic Alignment. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Are you ready for your Energy for Life bioenergetic nest scan? Dr. Larissa Sharapova and myself, Priscilla Koblenz, offer personal, private, 90-minute consults to get you back to optimal health and well-being. For more details, visit the show notes or check out harmonicalignment.co. We hope you enjoyed today's episode of Harmonic Alignment. If something resonated with you, we would love to hear about it. Please consider leaving us a 5-star review and subscribing so you don't miss an upcoming episode. Thank you. The information contained in this podcast is provided for informational purposes only and not intended for the purpose of diagnosing, treating, curing, or preventing any disease. Before using any products referenced on the podcast, consult with your healthcare provider. Carefully read all labels and directions. The products and information received through the podcast should not be used to replace a consultation or advice from your healthcare provider. If you suspect you have a medical problem or have any healthcare questions, please promptly call your healthcare provider. This podcast, including Dr. Larissa Sharapova and Priscilla Koblenz, and the producers are not responsible for any possible adverse effects from the use of information contained in this podcast. This podcast may contain endorsements and advertisements for products or services. Individuals on this podcast may have a direct financial benefit to the product or services referenced.